Hello, everyone. It's Danny B, and we are live this week for the post-Bristol NASCAR Weekly Podcast.
Green flag, green flag. I'll roll. He's flipping me up. Yeah, boys, how about that? They touched, pushing in the wall. He drew it off the track.
Oh, that's right.
And we're back. Intro is played. Welcome, everybody. You know me, I'm Danny B. I'm the host this week, joined along with the Iceberg, Eric, Darian, and our special guest, Mr. Rajah Caruth.
Hey, everybody. What's up?
Good to have you, man.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks
For
for
those
having
who
me.
don't know, Rajah Caruth, he is a NASCAR driver for diversity prospect. So I think in about 2 weeks he's going to find out if you made it or not. Is that right?
Yeah, I think in the next 2 weeks, definitely by the end of April. I really don't know, so.
Sure.
Find out when you find out, right?
Yeah. Right on that.
We just gonna jump right into Bristol, guys.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep, sounds good to me. And I guess since I went to Bristol, I can start off and tell y'all a little bit about how my weekend was. Real quick, I just want to say I wouldn't have even had a chance to go to Bristol without the help of the nice folks at Drive Studios from the country of Denmark. They were actually in Bristol filming a episode for their TV show that's going to be coming out later this year, and I got to be a part of it. They were filming with their two hosts. I'll have to pull up the names of the hosts because I actually forgot their names, unfortunately. But it was a really fun experience. They got to experience it, got to meet up with a few of my friends, Caleb Hoffman and another guy named James Jackson, awesome photographer. He got some good pictures of me. If you follow me on Twitter, you've probably been seeing some of those popping up here lately. And another cool thing is I actually got to meet a fan who was there. Got to meet two fans, actually, so it was pretty cool getting to meet everyone. And when we go to the August race this year, we'll definitely be encouraging everyone to come out and meet all of us when we're there, too. And overall, of course, one subject we'll talk about later is the stands. You can see in the video I'm playing right here, right now, the turns are pretty empty looking in the turns. It won't be the case for the night race, I do believe. But the racing, though, I felt was really, really good and entertaining. It was pretty close, especially for the lead. Saw a lot of good battles for the lead. But with that being said, I had a really good time at the race. What about you guys?
Man, let me just say this.
Super chat.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, my
What's
bad.
that, super
Didn't
chat?
get a chance to. Oh, our good friend Reverend Rasheem Stewart. Always good to hear from you, buddy. What direction you like to see NASCAR go into? I mean, honestly, I do love the short track racing, but if the way Bristol was, it's a little unsure of what we can actually do.
Well, let me just say this really quick, man. Kyle Busch took his car to the Old Town Road and drove it to the creek no more, man. And Kyle Busch, he's the master of Bristol. We all know this. He had the same situation happen to him that happened in the last Bristol race prior to that, in the summer one of 2018. Got wrecked on lap 2, had some rear end damage, and was able to come back and get the win. But one thing I love about that I love about Bristol, it's the parity, man. Ty Dillon getting a stage win. Chase Elliott was like he I guess caught the leader jinx, I guess, and he spins out, gets punted by a lap car. But in all fairness to Corey LaJoie, Elliott kind of slowed down before he could really do anything. And then we had some controversy towards the end, which we will get to later on in the show with Keselowski and like the whole restart thing. And then, oddly enough, after the race, like Ryan Newman and Ryan Blaney having that reaction to each other, that little interaction, like I gotta say, that's the happiest I've ever seen Newman, like for getting in like some sort of accident. I've never seen him so happy to get in like an accident like that. So little fender bender and stuff, but for the most part, Bristol, it's obviously the best track, and yes, we know attendance problems have been an issue. I am a fan of them moving their first date to the summer for 2021. I feel like it'll improve that much as far as the weather's concerned, and attendance will spike up at least by the bare minimum, I guess. But what's interesting is I did a poll before the race. And I asked fans, should Bristol lose its spring date due to the attendance plummeting. And 51% said no, but what was most shocking is 49% said yes. And I know Eric kind of touched up on that in his Sunday video after the race. I gotta say that's a bit surprising. I figured there would be more no's than yeses. I mean, there was, but I mean, 51 to 49%, that was a bit surprising. So as far as this race goes in terms of like my ratings, I'll give it a solid 9 out of 10 for sure. It would have been a 10 out of 10, but unfortunately NASCAR messing up the whole. Well, I don't really know what happened. If it was Keselowski's fault or if it was NASCAR's fault for the restart. That kind of was like, shouldn't have happened. But overall, great race.
Yeah, NASCAR had a couple questionable calls. The end one might have been, I think, mostly Keselowski's fault, but they also had the issue with Chase Elliott. I'm sorry, Danny B. I didn't mean to step all over you there.
It's all good. It's hard to control this when there's 4 of us who can't really touch each other on the shoulder and say, hey, I want to talk. No, I'm just touching up on what Darian said. I'm kind of for the idea of moving the earlier Bristol date maybe towards the summer. And when I watched Jarrett's video today, I kind of thought that it may be a good idea to maybe move it to May, maybe the week before the Charlotte All-Star race, because that does really good for Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, because then they would get 3 weekends in a row. That's a lot of profit opportunity right there in 3 weeks.
Move the All-Star race to Bristol. I'd be down with that.
Honestly, I'd be okay with that too. I do like the idea of bumping the first Bristol race back to May. I definitely don't want to take it off the schedule. I mean, we all are begging for more short tracks, and I think most people agree Bristol is one of the top 2 or 3 tracks on the circuit, no matter how you slice it. So taking a date away from Bristol does not compute in my head. I think the reason you had almost 50% on that poll is just recency. If you ask that same question in August, I'll bet it'll be like 80% yes or 80% no, 20% yes. But yeah, in a nutshell, my thoughts on the Bristol race. It was great. It was as good a modern Bristol race as you can have. I say modern because you have the 2 groups of racing. And one critique I've seen from a lot of fans as to why they think the stands weren't as full is because it's not old Bristol where everyone's right around the bottom, having to bump each other out of the way. Personally, this is just where I'm coming from. I like this Bristol better than old Bristol. I like that they can pass without bumping, but, bumping still helps. We still had guys run into each other. Blaney and Newman at the end were a little upset with each other. You still had a few bump and runs, even for the lead at different points in the race. So I like the balance that this current Bristol has with the fact that they have to put the grip strip down at the bottom. Is kind of annoying that they have to do that with this configuration, but it's worked. The last 2 years they've done it. So I like the way this Bristol race was. I agree with you, Darian. Give it a 9 out of 10. If not for the inconsistent calls, for one, when Chase Elliott wrecked Matt Tiff to get the free pass, whether it was intentional or not.
Now, did he wreck him on purpose?
No, I'm not. That's not the argument. It doesn't matter if he wrecked him on purpose. Per the rule book, he still shouldn't have gotten the free pass. So that favoritism and the fact that Fox just glossed right over it, it looked super fishy from the start. So I didn't like that. And then the issue with Keselowski. I think NASCAR was actually in the right on that one. I think Keselowski was in the wrong, but still kind of left a black eye at the end of this race. But ultimately, it was a good Bristol race.
Real quick, don't want to interrupt the conversation. Just forgot I missed the super chat. And I love to always shout out those who support the channel. Big Blue Attack said best NASCAR YouTuber of all time, and I greatly appreciate the compliment.
Well, I like to try and follow up the difficult ones to follow up, but I'm gonna try. I like the race a lot. I really did. At the same time, I like the 2 races last year a little bit better. And that's not saying this one's bad by any means. I think this one's the best race of the year, to be honest. I just think that's the high bar that the last 2 races at Bristol have set. I'm very old-fashioned with it. I do like the 1 groove track at Bristol, but at the same time, if we aren't going to have that, this is the version I want, because it seems like the bottom groove at least starts out being the preferred one in a lot of these races. But it actually moves up. You can have some bumping and banging during the race. And at the same time, there's comers and goers. I honestly don't see why people really wouldn't like it, other than the fact that it's just not how Bristol used to be. So you guys kind of covered all the main points. I'll just give my rating, get that right out of the way. I'd say 8.5 out of 10. I'm not ready to really say it's around that 9 or 10 level yet, just because I think that there's probably going to be some races this year that top this one, maybe even the second Bristol one. But by no means does that mean that I am disappointed by it. The stuff at the end is what it is, but I don't think it takes away from the racing overall. So 8.5 out of 10 is my take on it.
What'd you think about the race, Rajah?
I thought it was
I mean, I only saw the second half of the race because I wasn't able to watch the first half. I kind of agree with Jared. I think it was an 8 out of 10, honestly. The grip strip on the bottom definitely helps compensate for the momentum you get off the top in terms of like how people can roll the center and it'll still be even on corner exit. Like, I think that's interesting, but kind of like what Jared said, I think that'll be better races later on in the season. So I don't think it was necessarily a 9 or 9.5 out of 10. I think the restart jazz with Keselowski, that was a little weird. However, like, I really don't know what was going on there in terms of who was supposed to be on the top and who was supposed to let whoever in. But I mean, that is what it is. And then, I mean, Keselowski got penalized. So if y'all remember back at Daytona, a similar situation, it was either the Xfinity race or the 500. I can't remember. It was with Chase Elliott and Almirola, and on the top coming in the restart zone. I think it was a similar situation, and there was no penalty. So that's really all I got to say. I think it was a pretty good race, though.
Yeah, I think that was the 500. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, and I wonder if the correct call, not to like completely jump into this topic right off the top of the head, but I think the correct call would have been to make a no call in this situation. Late in the race, you hate to see, Brad Keselowski, who's had the second or third best car in this race, who deserved a top 5, really get screwed in that situation with 5 to go or whatever it was. But from the sounds of it, at least when I went back and heard, a lot of people immediately jumped on NASCAR in this because Keselowski bashed him in his post-race interview, said it was terrible, said all that stuff. So a lot of people sided with Keselowski right away before they heard NASCAR's side of the story. And actually, it turns out once NASCAR gave its side of the story, Brad Keselowski apologized on Twitter for going after NASCAR. So that's why I'm siding with NASCAR. It sounds like they told him to get in line, and he just was really adamant that he was where he was supposed to be and refused to back down, and that ultimately is what did it for him. It's the swift, what is it? The hard fist of justice. I don't know what the phrase is from NASCAR. You don't want to cross them.
The Iron Fist or whatever.
Iron Fist, yeah.
Yeah. I will say Keselowski handled that well and taking his responsibility well. I think that NASCAR's statement was, I think that they should have just left it a no statement on that. The whole stuff that we didn't want to waste laps kind of thing. It was like, well, there's 15 to go. It's, what's one lap at the end of the day really didn't make a difference. But it was one of those things. I was watching it in the garage with my grandfather, and we're both just like, okay, then, that happened. Then we see it happen, and the stuff with Keselowski, and it at least there's drivers showing emotion and giving their take, I guess, is what we could say, which if you watch anything with the Dale Jr. download, Steve Phelps might not be too happy with that, but the rest of us are. Yeah. And I enjoyed it, just because I think I'm in the minority here that I really like Brad Keselowski, and I really like when he gives his opinions, even if he's completely off base, because it's just fun to listen to. I give him credit for owning up to making a mistake. I just wish NASCAR would just not put that thing out there about wasting laps, because that just gives all the people who, are looking for something to ruin this race with ammunition, in my opinion.
Well, I feel like just like what's overshadowing, this amazing race was the attendance. I mean, I'll be honest though, like, everyone knew that, the whole attendance issue was going to be a huge eyesore, because like they decided to cut off the turn seats. And I mean, while I do understand why they did it, it was just I don't know, that didn't look good, man. That just didn't look good.
It made it look like an Xfinity race, which what they were hoping for. And I will say there's a couple camera angles where I thought it worked beautifully, because there's one good angle where you saw him coming down the front stretch, and then it turned and you saw him going down the back stretch, and all you saw there were packed stands in that one shot. Yeah. You saw packed stands. Now,
but then the turn cameras,
good. Right. Half their camera angles, it looked good. I'm like, ooh, but then the other half, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot.
That's so good.
It's like even NASCAR and Fox trying to zoom into the molecules on the car couldn't cover up all of it, kind of thing.
And then to make it, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I personally, I don't mind that they close those off. I just wish that other tracks do, and just like put some sponsorship over it. Like make that a reason that you're like, hey, look, you can get your brand on TV for 3.5 hours. There's no way around it, kind of thing.
Well, I thought they were going to do that. Yeah, I thought they were going to do that too.
The way they announced it so late, I I don't think they had enough time to plan that out. I think if they might have been planning it for a while, but they didn't announce it really until people brought it up. I remember we were looking at night race tickets, and then we looked at the spring one, and we're like, hey, like the turn seats aren't selling. Like they're just not letting you buy them. They must have them closed off. Then the next week we find out, and this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think if they announced that before the season, started working with the sponsors and stuff, I think they could have handled it much better. So I think that's what they should do next year.
And lastly, to make it 10 times worse, this is funny because NASCAR Reddit, they get on YouTubers all the time for being negative. Someone on Reddit posted a side-by-side comparison. Here's Bristol's attendance 10 years ago, and here's it now. It was like, it didn't look too good at all. But
that's the thing; it's optics. It's just the optics part of it. Because I mean, like, you know, I think, my aunt and uncle were at Wrigley this past week, and it sold out. And it, you know, that sellout right there had less people than Bristol had this week. You know, so it's all about the optics of it. And if NASCAR, I wouldn't say it's not NASCAR's fault. I think it's more just the track's fault. If they'd put those up and so it looked like, hey, these are the only 2 places to sit, I think it would have looked at least a little bit better.
But this also.
I think.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think what would have looked good is I think maybe Eric may even brought this up. I know if you ever go to like a Monster Jam event, they'll actually cover up some sections of stands that they don't want people sitting in, and they'll actually put like a sponsor of the Monster Jam. And I mean, if this is the same situation with NASCAR, you know, do something similar to that.
Now, this also brings up another good question. Eric talked about this in his Sunday video after the race. Do the fans really want more short tracks? Because
that's a good question.
Because we've had because if you look at ratings, and I think Jarrett's he's more.
I'm a nerd on this.
Yeah, he's better suited at that than I am. But if you look at the ratings, 1.5-mile tracks are up over short tracks. Why is that though, Jarrett?
I don't know, because and it's not something that's a new trend either. It's not something with the FS1, NBCSN.
It's been happening since the early 2000s.
Yeah, like I think the earliest they were showing the amount of viewers, like in 2004, 5, 6. Richmond would always get a lot less than whether it be Darlington or California before it. Whether obviously Talladega would get more, but you know any other race around that. Martinsville always gets way lower, which surprises me so much. When it was, I believe, like 2007, 8, 9 in the Chase, all these races are getting like 5, 6, 7 million viewers, and then Martinsville isn't even getting above 4.5 million or so. It's puzzling. I'll be completely honest. I think that the smaller bases watching it, I think, are the diehard fans, the true NASCAR fans for sure. But it amazes me that with basically all the stuff NASCAR markets itself with, whether it's beating and banging, great finishes, crashes, fans going wild, all 4 of those things and more are shown most prevalent at short tracks. So it baffles me that both attendance-wise and TV rating-wise, all these tracks that NASCAR fans say they hate, like a Texas, a Chicagoland, an Indianapolis, get better ratings and attendance in numbers at least than the short tracks do.
And also, people just blame Fox. Oh, just one more thing. They blame Fox for, why are the short track races on FS1 instead of Fox? They know what they're doing. Exactly. They're smart. They know that, short tracks don't do well ratings-wise and stuff.
Minimizing
so they know what they're doing.
Damage. They're minimizing the damage.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was going to say is I think this is my only theory as far as this topic goes, is I think it is the casual NASCAR fan. And I've talked about this before, how I think NASCAR needs to kind of figure out what its brand is. How does it set itself apart from IndyCar or Formula One or short dirt track racing or whatever? And I think the intermediates, whether you hate them, love them, whatever you feel, and the super speedways, I think that is really what sets NASCAR apart. You look, F1 IndyCar known for the road courses, or for Indianapolis, of course. NASCAR is known for the big packs at Daytona. And, I think California, Michigan, Texas, Atlanta, while the hardcore fans know that they're not the same as Daytona or Talladega, if you want to see a short track race, you can go to your local short track and watch other stock cars, other dirt racing cars, other sprint cars, whatever you want. You can see those race on a short track. NASCAR isn't going to short tracks, isn't anything special. I think at least to a lot of maybe hardcore fans or just a lot of general race fans across the board. When they think NASCAR, they think the big tracks, they think the high speeds, they think the packs, and you don't get any of that at short tracks. So I feel like maybe it's literally just, if I want to see a short track race, I don't need to go to watch NASCAR at Martinsville. I can go down the road and watch, World of Outlaws race or something like that, and I think maybe that is what hurts it to some extent. But you're right. The hardcore fans, especially recently, are pushing for short tracks. I think it's the casual fans who just know NASCAR as Daytona or Talladega Nights. I think they're the ones that are tuning in and upping the ratings at those bigger tracks. That's just my theory I'm coming up with on the fly. Don't know.
But do you think it's a whole perception issue? Like these casual fans will say, oh, bigger the track, bigger the race. So that's why they're not possibly watching short tracks as much, maybe?
Maybe. I just think I think maybe, I don't know. Again, I'm kind of making this up all on the fly. I haven't given this a whole lot of in-depth thought. I think it really just comes down to the speed that you see at a big track. And maybe it is the crowd. You see bigger stands. You go to Martinsville, and it looks like high school bleachers, out around turn 2, 3, turn 4, all that stuff. You go to Daytona, it looks like a football stadium. I don't know. But the fact that intermediate tracks outdraw short tracks is still surprising me. Like, it doesn't shock me at all that Daytona is more popular than Martinsville. That completely makes sense to me in a lot of ways. But yeah, it still is weird that Texas or that Charlotte is more popular.
But even then, like Martinsville being the size that it is, it's about perfect size for the crowd it draws, and it's making me really wonder: is Bristol's infrastructure too big for what it really needs at this point? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, at this point, it's probably a little bigger than it needs to, but we'll see. August, it'll still probably sell 100,000 or more tickets. So,
that's something I brought up earlier today. In my video, I was thinking about this for a while. The way Bristol can knock out two birds with one stone. And Danny, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Bristol, at least from the outside, just looks like any other track with bleachers, kind of seats like that, and just sort of 20 years behind where like a Daytona is. Am I wrong on that one?
Well, I won't lie. I mean, Bristol is a unique infrastructure, but I will say there's still some a lot more upgrades that I would recommend. What I would really recommend Bristol looking at doing is that they're such a large facility, but just having a bunch of metal bleachers at this point. People don't want to pay. People don't want to pay $100 to sit for 3, 4, 5 hours on an uncomfortable metal bleacher.
This is where I'm going with that. So what Bristol can do, knock out two birds with one stone, is one, you can at least fix the perception of not having as many people, while also, and I think this can also help out the night race, because you can see patches of empty seats, but for the most part, it's pretty full. But what you can do here, mask getting rid of seats or reducing your seating capacity by maybe 20 or 30,000 to fit the night race crowd is a renovation like Daytona did. Like Daytona was seating 156 to 160,000 people before the renovations, and then they downsized to 101,000. But it looks like there's a lot more people now because they sell out and the whole stands are full. You can do that with Bristol, where you make the seats maybe, like they were saying, a little wider like Daytona did, and make stuff that it makes the fans more comfortable and want to be there, while at the same time, make you look better too. I mean, that's one option, I guess.
And granted, when you do that, you're going to lose seating, but that's not really a bad thing from what we've seen. And even then, if that means that there isn't enough seats for the night race, well then, hey, I've been reading all the time people getting mad like, oh, used to there was a waiting list to get night race tickets. Well, maybe there could be if it's actually built right for everyone, And this maybe I'm just being wild and crazy here. Perhaps in the turns, maybe I know that there is in turns 1 and 2, they have already done something really good. They've added in the little Busch bar area, so you can kind of just.
I saw that.
You can sit there, hang out, drink, have some fun, and then over on the other side, turns 3 and 4, you've actually got more boxes and suites that go up through there. Maybe on that turn 1 and 2 side, since we've got something pretty cool like the Busch area, maybe we don't need as many of those bleachers up as high on that side. Maybe bring it down a little bit. Maybe even just bring some sections down a little bit. I don't know, just an idea coming to my mind. Kind of like, I guess I was driving by the Titans football stadium the other day, and I noticed how they had the stadium built out. You had two larger ends on the side, and then there's like nothing in like what do you call like the turn area. So I mean, I don't know, it's just an idea.
Go ahead, sorry. Oh no, I just wanted to point out one thing that nobody's brought up, and Jonathan S says in chat, location. Look at the markets that these short tracks are in. I mean, they're not the best. I mean, imagine if we had, short tracks in, let's say,
Chicago,
Montana,
New York,
LA, Las Vegas, New York, right? Those big cities. I feel like the turnout for that would be a lot better. But for the most part, I'd say Bristol. That's a pretty good market, and also Richmond as well. Maybe Martinsville, might not be the biggest, but the fans are at least loyal there in a way.
And then Jacob Hunt. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, bet. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I kind of have two things on the Bristol note. So I was listening to Jeff Gluck's post Bristol podcast the other day, and so he had two guests on there. They're talking about how they, in comparison to college football, in terms of what they've done with stands over the past few years, because I think that they were talking about how the future was online and watching stuff from home, and the not necessarily only the diehard fans would come, but you wouldn't get the attendance from a casual fan. And so I think what specifically they were talking about specifically, I think I can't remember if it was the Rose Bowl or some college football game this year, but they were talking about how the changes they made to the stadium to where they changed part of the seating, kind of what Danny was talking about in terms of the Busch beer section, kind of where they would put a lounge in the corners and have, I guess, I don't know, green space or kind of just billboards and stuff like that to, I guess, repurpose the areas to where they don't have to do a full-on tear down like they did at ISM last year, to where they can just repurpose what they have there. And secondly, kind of on the same note, so I went to Richmond last year, and they recently did renovations, and they did a great job with that in terms of making stuff easy to comprehend in terms of where stuff is and where to go and whatnot. So I think there's a really, I guess, cost-effective way to do that in terms of just repurposing what's already at the tracks. And Richmond did a pretty good job of that recently as well. So
what's funny is my mom, she just texted me. She asked me during the show, she asked me, do short tracks have sort of like a neon garage like LPMS has? And the answer is no. I think only Richmond has that sort of thing.
Only Richmond.
Yeah, so I feel like Bristol and Martinsville should really renovate. And also, if we are going to talk about adding these new short tracks, we have to take a look at the markets they're in. For example, Iowa Speedway. Just from talking from some people there who have come down to the race here in Las Vegas, I can tell you this: the first Cup Series race, it's going to sell out, guaranteed. If you give them a Cup Series date in 2021, Nashville Fairgrounds. I don't know. There's some pretty sketchy stuff happening right now, so we'll have to take a look. So.
But and no matter which one it is, if a Cup date opens, if there's the first Cup date at a track, it's going to sell out. I mean, if Kentucky Speedway can sell 117,000 seats for what we all knew was going to be more than likely lackluster racing, then I don't see how a track that seats probably a third of that many has better racing. It would be hard for a short track to not have better racing than Kentucky. So I think they would sell out. Now, another problem someone brought up in the chat is about the hotel pricing, but I mean, it's the same for a lot of sporting events too. A lot of NFL cities do this similar. Now, maybe not to the same extent, and seeing how NASCAR fans generally don't have as much money to spend on this, it becomes more of a problem. But, I don't really see any way to avoid that. I don't think that. And they have every right to do it too. So to do something like what Dale Jr. had brought up a few years ago, or about 10 years ago, buy some of the hotels if you have to, build some of them near the track that you own and have it be part of the
property.
Tickets. On the property or even in the city, own it.
If you will, Jared, I'd like to kind of maybe take this over. across the street from Bristol, there is something that is there. It's like condominiums or something that I think is actually affiliated with the Speedway in some way. And I mean, it's still going to be expensive. Here's the thing: I got my degree in hospitality and tourism management. I was a hotel manager for a year, and even then, we were 2 hours away from Bristol, and even we would have a little bit of a spike in our prices during that weekend. Here's the thing, guys: hotel prices, NASCAR cannot control anything. Bristol cannot control anything. And that's one thing that you can complain to NASCAR all you want about that. They don't control that. What it comes down to is these hotel owners, these hotel runners, when they are looking at their financial plan for the year, they look at their demand and when it's high, and they see, big event weekends such as races, and they say, okay, we're going to have a high demand, which means that our prices need to be high to meet that demand. So
just business.
Yeah, it's simple business.
I'm not arguing that. I wasn't arguing that at all. And I think they have every right to do so, and they should, even though we don't like it. What I'm saying is NASCAR and SMI have the money. They if they want and if they should buy out some of these hotels, build some on the properties if you can, and have it along with the ticket. The ticket might cost a little more, but in the end of the day, if you're spending $250, $300 on the ticket hotel combo, I mean, you could save anywhere from $250 to $300 with it, and you might, if it's on the property, you're right there at the track, you're closer. It would be a way to. It's an outside the box thing. I know it is, but NASCAR's been doing so much outside the box stuff, whether it be scheduling, whether it be with cars, whether it be with whatever you may insert here. They've been doing it outside the box the last year or two. I don't see why they can't at least try this, and if it fails, it's just another thing to tear down.
It'd be interesting to see them try it. But as far as the hotels go, I think this situation, it feels to me like it's NASCAR fans continue to look for a reason why NASCAR popularity has dipped. Because the truth is, when Bristol was selling out 150,000 people, ticket prices were probably, or not ticket prices, hotel costs in Bristol were still probably actually higher than they are today. I'll bet it costs more to get a hotel near Bristol 15 years ago than it does today. So hotel prices, that's not why people didn't go to Bristol. It's a factor, but it's always been a factor. So it's like, I don't buy that that's the reason people aren't going to the race this year. I see you guys super chat there, Danny.
Super chat.
Okay, let me check it out. I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me know. From Mr. Sterling, $5. Thank you so much. Attendance might also depend on what to do away from races. Daytona has a lot to do around the racetrack. Most short tracks are out in no man's land. That is a that is a valid point. Obviously, I'm from this area originally, so I can say, they're honestly, Bristol doesn't offer too much. They are building up a little nicer area called the Pinnacle, right off of Interstate 81, which is pretty nice. Features of Bass Pro Shops, series of restaurants, a few other shops around there, but there's nothing really. I guess, Bristol has like some country music history to it, I guess. It's not too far away from Knoxville and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, but Bristol itself, not really the most exciting city, except, everything going on around the Speedway.
Yeah. And that's why, long term, when NASCAR added these new facilities in Chicago and Kansas, it ended up hurting them in the long run, because now there's not that much of a demand for NASCAR in these markets and stuff. Now, maybe if these were short tracks, maybe you'd have some more people coming out than you do now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do think that's another issue too, and it's another issue that I don't really feel like applies to NASCAR today, because once again, Bristol wasn't in New York City 15 years ago. Bristol's always been in the middle of nowhere, and there's probably more to do around Bristol today than there was 30 years ago, if I had to guess. I just think there's a lot of problems with NASCAR, and I think a lot of people just keep liking to move from issue to issue to issue to say this is why, this is why, this is why, this is why. And the truth is, I think there's only a couple reasons or a couple things that are really hurting NASCAR. I think some of these things people are, they're factors, but they aren't necessarily new factors. I like to look at what's changed between now and when NASCAR's at its peak, and things like locations of Bristol has not changed. ticket prices for hotels going up on race weekends hasn't changed. Can they change going forward? Sure, maybe. Okay, you can't move Bristol, obviously, but you could build a new Bristol maybe. But I'm saying like hotel ticket prices, yes, you could pressure people to try and change them, and those would be good things. But like, I don't know. I just feel like that conversation has been had way too much this weekend because it doesn't really solve anything or explain anything. I actually had a couple other quick things. Going back to some of the other stuff you said, I wanted to say it then, but I really like Jarrett's idea of renovating Bristol the way Daytona did, maybe taking out a little bit of the capacity in favor of comfort. It makes me think of, and I don't know about all you guys, but where I'm from, basically every single movie theater in the last 5 to 10 years has ripped out the traditional stadium-style seats and instead replaced them with like couches. It's probably fit less people in the theater, but it's a much more comfortable experience because in this day and age where, especially when we're talking about live sports, everything is on TV in perfect HD, and oftentimes you have a better view of the sport on TV than you do at the event itself. I can think basketball is maybe more fun in person. Baseball maybe is more fun in person. But honestly, football, I'd much rather watch the game from my couch. I know obviously the fan experience is part of it, but sitting at home watching on an 80-inch TV or something is very comfortable. So, NASCAR, and I think most live sports, I mean, we've talked about this before. What was it this last week? I mentioned this on my show today, but the Baltimore Orioles baseball team, baseball season just started, and they just set a record low for attendance at one of their games. They had
they suck, though. People. They suck, too.
But it's still a record low. I'm sure they've sucked in years past as well, and it hasn't been the attendance hasn't been as bad as it was this year. So
sorry, Balto.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, obviously, NASCAR's situation is worse than some of these other sports, but to act like it's a complete anomaly that NASCAR is struggling with attendance at some of these racetracks, I don't know. Yeah, I just feel like it's all being blown a little out of proportion. You guys know, like Bristol this last weekend's race wasn't even the lowest attended race this year. Phoenix only seats 40,000 people, and they didn't even sell out earlier a few weeks ago. So
I don't know. I just don't like when fans they look at other sports and they're like, well, look at us, like look at football or baseball, like, they're struggling in attendance too. I don't know. It's just like they're all totally different situations, but I do feel like the one thing in common is that, it's a new day and age with, with better coverage on TV and, on social media as well. So like, that's like the only common denominator I see in all three of these issues.
And I just think that's a really big one. That's why I like to bring it up. But
I will say this, and it didn't even occur to me until right now. Something else that was actually going on the same day that is a big attendance viewer, draws in a lot of people to watch it in person and on TV, was that on the same day as Bristol was WrestleMania, and that is a big event. You'd be surprised who all actually wants to tune in for that. Even David Land was up at WrestleMania. So, I mean, that's a possibility because, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of NASCAR fans who are also fans of that. And, maybe some of them would just not want to have been like me and been in Bristol and have to wait the next day to watch WrestleMania. Maybe a lot of them just want to watch it on TV and then watch that later. I don't know. Just something I just thought of.
So I think that'll just about do it. We pretty much covered everything for
spent like the first third of the show.
40 minutes, yeah.
That was a good conversation. I hope the chat enjoyed it.
Yeah, good one, guys.
So how about we shift from one-way watching to another in TV ratings, seeing how Bristol got about just above 2.8 million viewers this past week, which I believe the rating was just about the same as Texas was on the same weekend last year, wasn't it?
It was. I looked it up in detail. Compared to Texas, I think it was last year. Yeah, it was even from Texas last year on FS1. Interestingly enough, though, I know last year's Bristol race was run on a Monday, so that usually hurts ratings. But that being said, it was run on Fox, or it was shown on Fox, which is the main broadcast thing. And this year's FS1 race did have a better rating than last year's Fox race. I guess you really can't compare that. I guess I do. I don't know. I always find it interesting when a cable channel beats a broadcast channel in that sense, but obviously Sunday versus Monday. So I don't know, 2.8 million viewers. It's fine. I think this rating is actually slightly higher than Martinsville was on FS1 a couple weeks ago. I think Bristol brought in more viewers than Martinsville did a couple weeks back by just a little bit. So I guess, does that mean Bristol's the best track in NASCAR now, the most popular track? Is that what that means? I don't know.
Maybe.
Confirmed now? Like, I know a lot of people like to talk about Bristol and Martinsville as maybe the two best. I don't know. But, yeah.
See, I can't wait till we get to a weekend, especially with Talladega. Talladega will be a good benchmark because I don't see that race. More than likely, it's not going to get rained out. I just want something comparable again because like the last few weeks, because of rain out and because of different channels and stuff, you can't have these comparable ratings. And it's like we think based on how other years have been doing, it's doing good, and generally it has been up a little bit. But I just can't wait till we get like Richmond, Talladega, Kansas, the 600, just so we can get a clear gauge on where the season's going. So if we start seeing like 10, 8, 6, 10, 12% increases, then like we know, okay, there's something good happening here. So far, I'm getting the gauge that it's an upward trend, at the very worst, a flat trend, which I think, going into the season, we all kind of agreed that was a success. So
yeah, I would agree.
It could be worse. We could only have had less than 300,000 watching the race.
Oh man!
Oh, that's harsh. That is foul. That was.
Hey, it was just hanging right out there for
It's
me.
just
Not wrong.
For the record, I've grown. IndyCar's grown on me a little bit this year. So
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the racing was bad. I'm just saying the amount of people watching was.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll be honest. I don't have anything against IndyCar. I went to my first IndyCar race a couple weeks ago, and it was pretty cool. It's just the fact that sport is surviving with less than 300,000 people watching their race on TV. That's
money.
I don't know how they're hanging in there with that one. I don't know how much longer they could hang in there with that one. Because that's the thing is when people say NASCAR's dying, I'm like, I know NASCAR has to shrink itself. IndyCar shrunk itself down quite a bit, but NASCAR still pulled in like 90%, or not 90%. Or IndyCar had 10% of the ratings NASCAR did this last weekend.
See,
Like,
that
that's crazy.
kind of leads in with like the sort of downsizing or shifting a little bit. So like we all know, like, a big thing I've been harping on is with the contract running out soon, not soon, in like 5 years. But NASCAR is going to have more of a 5-year to 10-year plan on what to do. And I saw that Monster actually, they announced Monster offered to extend another year under their contract.
Yeah.
And NASCAR declined.
Good.
Because of their new business model. And it shows they're that committed to it, which is something I like.
I like that. I like to see. Yeah, I like to see that too. I mean, the whole business model with the title sponsor, like it started in 1972, and Winston was the title sponsor all the way through 2003 and stuff. And then at the time, Brian France wanted to sort of get rid of the of the old guard and like bring in Nextel/Sprint to sort of modernize the sport and stuff. But honestly, looking back, probably what they should have done was the business model that they're about to debut now and stuff. Maybe the sport would be in a much different place in terms of costs and such.
That doesn't. I see some people in the chat. They're saying they're happy Monster's leaving. That doesn't mean Monster's leaving. It just means they're probably taking on.
Wait, why would anyone be happy that a sponsor's leaving though? I don't get it.
I don't know.
Monster's actually pretty good. I mean, if you go to the races, you can be guaranteed to get a free Monster there. So.
Well, it doesn't matter like who's sponsoring it. If they're paying money for the sport, then you should support it. I'm sorry, like you don't have to like go buy them, but like I'm not saying you have. Yeah, exactly. Like at least tolerate it and stuff. But I mean, they're paying millions of dollars for to a sport that we all love and stuff. So
here's the way I
don't like that.
Support brands who support your favorite sport. Because I'll admit this, I don't drink a lot of energy drinks, but when I do, I usually buy a Monster just for the fact that they support NASCAR.
Well, no, Monster's nasty, but like I'm glad you guys are. I'm glad you guys. I'm glad you guys are sponsoring it though. I'm happy about that.
Sponsor our show.
Monster tastes delicious. He's the only one you don't sponsor. Okay.
I do like though that NASCAR is committed to their new model because like Monster the last 3 years has been paying half of what Sprint was paying. So they have a really good deal going. I don't blame NASCAR saying like, hey, you guys, we're going to do this instead. And it sounds like Monster still is likely going to stay on. At the very least, they're just going to sponsor more race teams, like more like they'll up their sponsorship with Kurt Busch or something or other.
And also Haley Deegan, she's coming up too.
That's
so
true.
With her long term, so that could have a good long term payoff. Go ahead.
For many of you in the chat, don't worry. The Monster girls are not leaving. They're going to be there for you. They'll still be there. No existential crisis here.
Can we get some W's in the chat for that win right there, boys?
But yeah, I don't see Monster leaving. I think they're going to be here, especially if Kurt Busch goes longer than just this year. I don't see Monster leaving anytime soon. Then you got Haley Deegan coming on up, and the investments people are putting in that girl. Like I don't see any of those sponsors leaving the sport anytime soon.
And some Cup Series drivers, or damn near all of them. So like no sponsor is gonna like leave her anytime soon.
Right.
But yeah, so I'm happy. I'm happy with what they're doing. It shows they're committed to this new business model, which they, honestly, the title sponsor stuff worked into the 2000s, but the recession just killed it. And the way that the sport had to align after the fact. So yeah.
Oh, by the way, guys, really quick, 164 watching and only 64 likes. Let's make sure we lick the like button. Let's get it up to 200 eventually, hopefully, or at least 100 for now. So lick the like button.
Absolutely, guys. Let's make sure we lick the like button. And also, I do believe I'm at like 49:11. Hey, we're getting closer to 5K. Let's see if we can get up there. Danny B 5K. Anyone up for that?
Jared's close. He's catching you though. He's this close. Yeah. I mean, they talk about the T Series versus PewDiePie. I mean, Danny B versus Jared. The Iceberg. That's a real thing.
Well, how about we get just both of us to 5K? That sound good?
All right. Yeah. Let's meet at the same day or same time. Like right at the end of the stream, we both hit 5K. How about that? Yeah. Perfect. Just perfect. But sort of moving to the next topic, I just want to bring this up because I am a marathon runner and a long distance runner. Jimmie Johnson is a badass. And no, that's not cussing. That's mild language. There's a difference. Jimmie Johnson, though. Yes. Jimmie Johnson, he's going to be flying after Richmond straight to Boston to run the Boston Marathon, which for many of you might not know, it's like one of the biggest, if not the biggest marathon.
It's the Daytona in the country of marathons.
Pretty much.
I call it the Indy 500. To be honest with you,
I wouldn't bring it up if there wasn't some kind of NASCAR catch to it. Ally Bank, the sponsor of Jimmie Johnson, they're going to have a station for Johnson at mile 17, I believe, with over 100 fans to support him. So I say attaboy to Ally. They've already, in that one showing to Jimmie Johnson, have given more support outside the track than Lowe's ever did. So good job.
Lowe's. In the early 2000s, Lowe's was they were pretty cool off the track and stuff. It's just when the ratings went down and off.
Hey, they sponsored his best track for a few years there. Lowe's.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And then once they left that, they left putting Johnson commercials out there, really.
I gotta ask this though: what if Jimmie Johnson wins the whole damn thing? That'd be amazing. That'd be freaking amazing.
The Boston Marathon.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna.
Yeah, he could win his age crew, maybe, right?
Yeah,
maybe. Guys, his odds are probably so high. Put your money on Johnson, guys. You might
more relevant. Now, maybe this is just nothing burger here, but the more relevant question is: what if the race gets rained out?
I think that
or gets suspended later.
I saw him tweet something because I think there is some rain in the forecast for Richmond.
There is rain in the area this weekend.
Yeah.
I could see NASCAR honestly like being on Johnson's side, and it's like, don't worry, we'll schedule the race for Monday just for you. I can see that. I can honestly see NASCAR doing some stuff like that. Though.
The Jimmie Johnson conspiracy. We need to have a tinfoil hat sometimes so that we can just put it on at random times.
I tell you what, Kyle Busch is also in a similar situation. He's racing on Saturday in Richmond, and weather permitting, he's also supposed to come to Nashville on Sunday to run an All-American 400. But it's looking like it's going to storm here, so I doubt.
I saw they think they might have to postpone it to like the next week or something. At least that's what I saw. But that's at Nashville Fairgrounds, right?
Yes, it's at the Nashville Fairgrounds. Well, if the weather's nice, I'd like to go, but if it's not, then I'm going to go to work.
So, speaking of Nashville Fairgrounds, there was some shitty stuff happening. Eric, what happened, dude? What's going on with the...
Oh, goodness. I basically just read an article for my video today, so I'm not the expert. Jared knows it. I know that they have run into issues because the people at Fairgrounds or the city of Nashville want to build a soccer stadium next to the track. They want to build apartments next to the track, and that's going to really screw over the Speedway. So the Speedway is pushing back, but they're saying, hey, we've had these plans for years. Apparently the owner of the Speedway has done some shady stuff the last few months or last year, and so they're not really wanting to work with them on anything. So it sounds like there's just a big hang-up overall.
Yeah, I have a few things here, like a list of a few things. So one of them was, I guess, the racetrack breached a contract. They were racing after the late hours. They had late rent. Unpaid concession revenues to the city were also a problem. Yeah. And let's see, it says, again, like the people running it say there's more of the story, but if anyone with this kind of stuff says there's more of the story. But It says that just from 2018 alone, they owe $31,930 just from concessions.
Wow.
Wait, hold on, say that again.
To the
How
city.
much?
$31,930, which it doesn't seem like too much compared to what we usually talk about on the national stuff. But I mean, when you're looking at a smaller track putting on mostly local racing,
This is
that's
a
big
track
money.
this is a track that wants a Cup Series date, guys.
Well,
They want a
wait.
Cup Series date and like they're go ahead, continue.
They violated the track rental curfew and like how late they could race on May 27th last year, after being verbally warned not to do it again on May 10th of that year, and they paid their rent late for January through March this year. They paid it on April 4th, but still they paid it late. And I'll be honest, this had me thinking that at this point for Nashville to be on the Cup Series schedule, they're gonna probably have to be bought out by either ISC or SMI. I think at that point,
And even then, it
very
sounds like logistically, they're gonna have their hands full with the city of Nashville trying to figure out, because it sounds like they're more committed. It sounds like they're further along in the plans for a Major League Soccer team. It's kind of like, I feel like that's their priority right now.
Well, from the very beginning, I don't know if anyone else felt this way. The idea of having Nashville Fairgrounds on the Cup Series schedule seemed more like a dream than a reality in a way. You guys know what I'm saying? I don't know. I mean, if it's not owned by SMI or what's the other company? ISC. Yeah, ISC. Then I don't know. I just saw it. I just saw them having a hard time trying to get a Cup Series date. I mean, this is a track that NASCAR hasn't even raced trucks on since 2000. I mean, it was very ambitious, but I mean, yeah, it was a long shot.
I saw in the chat Cody put why not go back to the Milwaukee Mile? Now I think many people won't agree with me here, but I think that's a really good idea. Because
I agree.
Well,
Yeah,
I know you guys will, but I know a lot of people won't. But the thing is, the Milwaukee area, when it comes to just in general, and stuff being built, amenities, everything like that, has been growing a lot in the past few years. It's been growing, and on top of that, it fits the short track want or need that a lot of the fans are saying. You do that, you have a new market right there. Now, granted, it will be close to Road America. So, and when it comes to Illinois or Wisconsin winters and weather, it's very similar. So you're going to have, there's certain times of the year you're not going to be able to run the Milwaukee Mile comfortably for fans in October or late October or November. And you're not going to be able to do it February through probably about early April. I mean, yeah, like here. There's days out here, like this past weekend, that were 70, 75 degrees, and then today it's 35 and rainy kind of thing. So the weather's...
Didn't the Milwaukee Mile have some problems with money and stuff, and that's why they got taken off of the the owner was he was also doing some pretty shady stuff at the time, wasn't he?
I think there's some stuff with it, but I mean, again, this is another thing. If SMI or ISC buys it up, as much as we probably don't want the big corporation that runs all these tracks basically getting even more of them, it might be the only hope if you want that kind of racing. It's kind of you have to take one or the other kind of thing. You can't have both. You can't have one where it's just an independent person really anymore.
Well, Rockingham, they seem to be the most ready out of all of them. I mean, they already have a whole business plan and stuff. It's not just going to be racing. They're going to have concerts and that sort of thing, sort of similar to what LVMS does. And also, I think they're currently in some serious talks with NASCAR to come back in some sort of capacity in a way, even if it's just the Xfinity or Truck Series, something like that.
That's more realistic. I want to get one out of the way right now. We had the guys from Save the Speedway on last year. He told us straight up, more than likely they will never race in the top 3 levels of NASCAR again at North Wilkesboro. As much as I want, as much as anyone else, being realistic, it's not going to happen, guys.
Dude,
so
that track is
stop asking for that one.
It's probably going to be demolished in like maybe 2 or 3 years, something like that. I mean, let's be real.
Going back to the talk about the Fairgrounds Speedway, I do want to point out, actually, I seen it in the chat, I want to confirm it. 3 hours ago, Fairgrounds Speedway Nashville on Facebook posted that officials from the Fairgrounds Speedway Nashville gave a valiant effort twice, but the 34th All-American 400 for super late models at the Tennessee track was just not meant to be. And they have actually canceled the weekend, and tentatively now it's being rescheduled. The 35th All-American 400 is slated for November 2nd through 3rd, 2019, so the race will not happen this weekend.
That sucks.
So the racing gods are not on our side.
Because Kyle Busch was going to be in it.
Yeah, he was going to run it.
Yeah.
They're hating Nashville, man. They're hating, man. They're hating on lately.
Maybe this is like the tough trials and tribulations we all have to go through to appreciate when we get it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Lord willing.
Yeah, but
What do you think, man, about the whole Nashville Fairgrounds deal?
But speaking of a track that is on the Cup schedule currently, and is unless did anyone else have anything to bring on that?
Just ask Rajah if you had anything.
Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
I didn't really have anything specifically to say about that. In terms of different short tracks that have been previously visited, though, I really don't know why, in terms of like contractual stuff and whatnot, why IRP really, like, it's been talked about in terms of like with wish list and stuff like that. Like, that track had some of the best like Busch racing, like in like 2008, 2009, especially with the old bodies. Like, I think Jason Leffler won his last race there. Like, the races there were awesome.
Yeah, he won Toyota's first ever race in NASCAR.
Yeah. So
That would be cool.
yeah, I think that's probably
Absolutely.
probably the best, or not one of the best short tracks that was previously run with NASCAR that doesn't run anymore, I think. But it's kind of a thing where people will go on Twitter and say, "Oh, we want this," and won't like do anything about it. Like, you got to fill the seats, you got to make the effort. Like, there's one thing if you have like no means of doing it, but there's definitely people that have the opportunity. They just got to get up and do it. So,
right. Really quick, Danny, you have a super chat from
I see that
John.
from Mr. John Smith. Thank you for the $2, John. NASCAR should go to Slinger with Matt Kenseth. I'm sure Eric would be all for that idea.
I'm actually going to be at Slinger in a few months to see Mr. Matt Kenseth race one last time. So I'd be all for. Well, I don't know. I can't say I'll be going up to Slinger very often. It's the other side of the country for me, but
interview him. Okay. Interview him, maybe. Or?
Hopefully, that'd be cool. That'd be cool to get to chat with Matt for a minute. See if he can at least say hi to the people at home that love him and miss him so much.
Oh, you'll be on my end of the country.
Hey, can I stay there for? No, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Go for it, man. Go for it. Yeah,
So,
I'm more than willing to have you.
Any fans near the area? You want to go say hey to Eric? You may see him over there.
Yeah, I haven't been that far north in a long, long time.
Hey, Cody H Gaming says, "Dude, we need to meet Eric. I'll be there too."
Oh, small world. Well, cool. Yeah. Probably won't be hard to miss me out there.
Maybe I'll drive up there.
Freaking tree. Can't miss him.
Okay, guys. So what's the Bristol YouTube meeting at this point? If we're all going to Slinger now, I mean,
I ain't going to Slinger. I ain't going to Slinger. Though.
That's the national meetup. We're just talking about a local kind of one. Yeah, come on, man. We got it. This is just like this.
It's the Xfinity race to the Cup race that is our meetup at Bristol.
Yeah, it's the appetizer.
It's the Xfinity. It's the Xfinity race to our NASCAR weekend. It's the lead up.
Okay.
There you go.
And I was in the truck series this weekend. And so.
Wow.
I saw that.
You see the super chat, man? Wow.
No, I did not. Hold on.
Your creepy uncle has entered the chat, Daniel.
I love that name.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, Mr. Creepy Uncle, thank you for $10. Just don't be too creepy, okay?
There's so many jokes I can make that I'm not going to. Do you hear about Jayski?
It's back. Well, sort of.
yeah.
It's kind of back. ESPN was nice enough to give them back ownership, or I think they bought back the ownership of the site. But right now they're looking for potential partners to bring the full site back. And Jarrett had an amazing idea about that. You want to explain that, Jarrett?
I'm saying if they have if they're doing crowdfunding for it, which I mean, I haven't looked too much into it, but nowadays that's a very popular thing to do. Why not have the people running it come on here and just, raise awareness, or even if depending on whose channel it is or whatever, like if we're on my channel, just have all the super chats go towards funding Jayski. I mean, I'm pretty sure that'd be a nice way for fans to give back for what they've done for us the last 20 years. And plus, I need my TV rating stats back, man. I didn't realize those would be gone.
I need my paint schemes back too for my thumbnails and just to look at. I
was looking, and it's like they have TV ratings that go back to about 2011, and I'm like, no, I need the ones from further back so I know what I'm actually talking about for sure now. Like, I need it back. So. But no, in all seriousness, I really want Jayski to come back, and if there's anything we can do to help, I am more than willing to do so.
Yeah, that's cool though that they've got the opportunity to keep going. I was worried that they would have to basically fold completely and just kind of bow down to their ESPN overlords there. But that's cool that they're back, or at least looking to be back.
I just remember everyone was so sad on Twitter and on here, just talking about, oh man, Jayski's they're going away and stuff. It sucks, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're back. Well, in a different capacity, I guess. So
false alarm.
Yeah. So great news all around, for sure.
Oh gosh, let's see. I saw this earlier today. So fan ballot voting is now open for the 2020 Hall of Fame class. So there's that.
I honestly didn't even know fans got to vote on any of that type of stuff. So
they started it last year, I think.
I think it was a little while.
All I know is fan voting in sports usually goes horribly wrong.
Mhm.
You get Zaza Pachulia as the lead vote getter in the NBA. That's what happens.
You know what you should do if you want to see what fan voting is good for. I'm not going to say them on here because I promised the no cussing rule, but go back and look at the Name Your Own Mountain Dew contest from about 2012, and you will see some. No. It's the beauties of the internet.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Yeah, so check that out.
Go back.
Revisiting that.
I'm not gonna say what it was, but there was a winner who wasn't really a winner.
Just imagine that one on Dale Jr.'s car.
Wait, what did it say?
I'll tell you after. I can't say it live.
I will not say it, but
tell me after.
Yeah, we'll say after.
I'll message you, Darian.
Not on the Hangout one, because that one shows up to everybody now.
I'm going to private message Darian so he knows.
So I saw. I'll just do a lightning round of stuff that's going through, just because we don't need to go too in depth on it. So there was that. Atlanta Motor Speedway is reducing its ticket prices, and some of them will start at $39. That's awesome.
About damn time.
Myatt Snyder running the full NASCAR Euro Series schedule, so that's pretty cool. And Natalie Decker, he saw it. Okay, so Natalie Decker adds 6 races to her 2019 Truck Series schedule in the 54 Toyota, and now we'll have a schedule of 17 races. So far this season, her best finish has been 13th.
The backstory behind that is she failed to make the final cut for the brand new W Series.
Yeah.
Which I got to be honest, it was a bit odd to see some of the stock car talent try out for that, because the cars they're basically F1 cars, if I'm not mistaken. Like in a way, like
they're open wheel.
Open wheel, basically. Yeah. So. I don't know. Hopefully, she puts up better numbers. Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Let's see. We already talked about that earlier. Here's something really quick. Well, I'll bring that up in a second. But the last time that Chevrolet went winless through 9 races was 27 years ago in 1992. And the reason I bring this up is because if Chevy doesn't win this week at Richmond, which, if anything happens to Kurt Busch, is a high probability, that's going to be matched again. So what do you guys think about how far Chevy has fallen for their standards?
Y'all suck. Oh, my God. I can't believe that. Man, who would have thought, 2 or 3 years ago, it would come to this, man? I feel bad. I feel bad for some of the teams and stuff too. Like, I mean, you'd have to think maybe if like they were with a different manufacturer, maybe they would have better numbers. I'm not really sure, but that's just a thought.
I don't know. You just look at like I don't know the exact math, but I'll bet if you looked at the average age of a Chevy driver these days, compare them to the average age of a Toyota or a Ford driver, I'm sure Chevys, they got some young boys.
We talking about on the road in general or in racing? Because
I'm talking about in NASCAR.
I think both could be applicable though.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't run into too many issues with Chevys on the road.
This is why I sell Toyotas.
Here we go. Here we go. Where do you work at again, Danny?
Beeman Toyota in Nashville, Tennessee. Come by for me, please, here. So I really need to sell something. I haven't sold anything this month. Please send it. Send anybody you know.
So is that your voice I hear on those radio ads? That sounds really good.
So anyone else you got something?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of the driver side of it, in terms of the manufacturers, I think Toyota definitely has done the best job over the past 10, 12 years in terms of farming guys and girls up through the ranks in terms of, spotting ability level, especially like KBM. Since like 2012, they've brought like Bubba, Eric Jones, the list goes on in terms of just talented guys coming up through the ranks. And like Chevy's done a pretty good job with it in terms of this year. They did I think GMS is doing it with like Gregson and Sam Mayer and a bunch of the lower guys and Brett Moffitt in terms of, I forgot exactly the name of it, but in terms of like a development program, in terms of on and off the track stuff. So I think that's kind of why Toyota has the upper hand with that, since TRD has been so like hands-on in terms of bringing the people up from a young age and fostering them and making sure that, they won't be a bust.
Even Ford.
Ford, yeah.
Miles ahead of Chevy. I mean, I also have to say, I mean, ever since Stuart Haas Racing left, they haven't been the same. Chevy has not been the same ever since.
Right.
You bring up a good point. I feel like if you look at Cup Series drivers these days, a lot of these young guys, it's hard to find a guy that didn't drive for Kyle Busch at one point or another in recent years. They should straight just rename it the Busch Series, because if he's not winning, one of his former drivers is.
Yeah. I mean, Toyota, they've done such a great job with that whole development program that they're overcrowded in a sense,
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Christopher Bell, we still don't know if he's even going to be at Joe Gibbs and stuff. Although Joe Gibbs has said that, he does have a future here and stuff, which is kind of hard to believe. I
don't know what he's saying there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe Levine Family Racing gives him a second ride. I don't know, but like, there's a lot of great drivers in their pipeline right now. Chevy, who's in their pipeline right now? Sam Meyer.
Gregson.
He's like 15. That's
I know.
crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you have these like super young dudes and stuff. I think Sheldon Creed,
Zane Smith, does he count?
Zane Smith, I'm pretty high on him too. But like, these guys they're super freaking young. I mean, for a Ford and for both Ford and Toyota, like you already have guys in the Cup Series because like they were ready, like years prior to this, and now Chevy's kind of like, oh man, we gotta pick it up here and stuff. So hopefully, maybe 2 or 3 years in a row, it'll be better.
What was the name of the kid who won the Bristol K&N race this weekend? I mean, I think
Sam Meyer.
Yeah, he was driving a Chevy. So I mean, yeah, he's in there, and he not only won, he led all the laps in that race.
Is it Meyer or
Mayer?
Okay, sorry, so Sam Meyer. I was messing up names.
Always like a John Deere.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I'll just run through a few other things. If we got anything else on that one?
No.
Chevy sucks. Toyota's good.
Hit us with the news.
All right. So Big and Rich, they are going to be playing at the Earnhardt Campground at Bristol this fall for the night race, more than likely on Thursday. The time I don't think has been told too much yet, but more than likely it won't be during the racing, I would assume. Let's see, NASCAR, they're saying and we covered this a little earlier, but just to put a final point on it, they said the reason that they started with the field all jumbled up the way it was with Keselowski is because they didn't want to waste laps. So that's why, if anyone's paying attention to that now, little more interest. Oh, and the stages at Sonoma, they got changed. They were 20. ended at lap 25, then 50, then 110. Now it's 20, 40, 110, and this is due to the fact that they changed the layout this year to the old one. So we'll see the effects of that. Should be a nice curveball of a race for DW to announce his final one at. And
move it to the spring. I want to see the green. I want to see the grass. I want to see the grass. Please do it.
It really needs to be in that date that Martinsville had, I swear.
Yeah.
did anyone else also hear about Hannah Newhouse?
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious.
What
Yeah.
a douchebag.
I'm officially giving her the nickname Hot Mike Hannah because that was amazing. I was going on Twitter and I saw that and I was, what a douchebag. I'm like, I can't imagine how many media people over the last however long have said that and not been caught, or said worse and not been
They
caught.
said worse. Yeah, I was about to say. They probably said worse.
Yeah, you would know working at the Speedway.
Yeah,
You
we have
know,
the whole
like,
raw feed
I
and
wouldn't
stuff.
name names though, but
I haven't really heard anything like too bad to talk about, but like, yeah, they say whatever.
so also let's oversaturate even further this topic. Kyle Busch, he with his win got moved to tie in the top 10 in all-time win list, and I did a little reading it. So for people who don't know who the top 10 win list is, really quick, I'll list them off really fast. So, of course, Richard Petty, 200, David Pearson, 105, Jeff Gordon, 93, 84 for DW and Bobby Allison, 83 for Jimmie Johnson and Cale, Yarborough, 76 for Dale Earnhardt, 55 for Rusty Wallace, and then Wallace.
I knew it.
I know. That's the thing is, one day we're gonna be interviewing Rusty Wallace, and we'll be like, "Hey, we're joined today by Rusty Wallace." Oh, crap.
Yeah.
But then Kyle Busch and Lee Petty are tied for 10th at 54, and something to add to with all this, kind of funny. Kyle Busch and Jimmie Johnson are the only two in that top 10 list that are not in the Hall of Fame, and every one of those drivers have won championships. Rusty Wallace, Kyle Busch, and Bobby Allison have won one championship each. The rest have won 3 or more. So, what do you guys think? What does that say about Mr. Kyle Busch?
Well, it says a lot because looking up Lee Petty's stats, he didn't get his first career win until age 37. And, Kyle Busch is, pretty crazy, huh? Kyle Busch, he's 33 years old. He's already inside the top 10 all-time in all-time wins. I mean, that's crazy. So I still think he has a fairly long way to go. By the time he retires, I could see him having maybe 80, even 90 plus Cup Series wins. Honestly, at this pace and stuff, he still has about maybe, I'd say, 5 or 6 more prime years left in him. And then even after he exits, he leaves his prime and stuff. I could still see him winning and stuff because his Kyle Busch's bad is it's way different than a lot of other drivers and stuff. A bad season for Kyle Busch is winning 3 races. Honestly, I mean, just look back to 2009 when he missed the chase and stuff. He still won 3 races that year and stuff. So I could totally see that. And I don't know. I'm just gonna say this. Put some to the fans. Start putting some respect to Kyle Busch's name. I mean, he's doing big things.
I will say this about Kyle Busch. The way I see him, I can see him wanting to race honestly for quite a good amount of time. And his son Brexton he's probably what, 5 at this point, or 4 or 5.
Wasn't he born in 2015?
Is he really?
That was his championship season.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's about 4 years old, and probably by the time Brexton will be about maybe 14, he may start to get some racing in. I could see Kyle maybe wanting to race until Brexton's really at a point where he can race.
Yeah. Kyle Busch. I think people are actually. It's interesting. 4 weeks ago, I feel like the dislike for Kyle Busch was here and the respect was here. I feel like just in 4 weeks, it's come quite a bit the other way. The dislike for Kyle Busch has come down.
The media kept overhyping this.
I think you're right. I think the media shoved it down too many people's throats, and now people are able to think for themselves. And when they actually think for themselves, they're like, "Dang, Kyle Busch is pretty impressive. I mean, he's kind of a jackass, but he's pretty dang good." I if we're gonna like bet on how many wins he's gonna end up with, I'm guessing he'll hit 80 easy. 90 to 100 isn't out of the question. If he hits 100, I don't know. The question and the problem is he's going to be a really tough one to rank when his career is over because he might only get one more championship. With the way this format is, if they stick with this format long term, which I bet they will for at least a few more years, it's tough. It's tough to see repeat champions. Ever since they started this format, a version of this format in 2014, we haven't had any repeat champions. So I don't see Kyle Busch running off 4 in a row or 5 in a row like Johnson did. I think Kyle Busch is going to have like 90 wins, but only 2 championships. I feel like he's going to be like remembered closer to a Bobby Allison than a Jimmie Johnson.
Yeah, that's going to be a very odd, stat line to look at. 90 plus wins, 2 championships. Just like it's also it's very odd to look at Bobby Allison's career, and he's like, and his stats are 85 career Cup Series wins or 84, somewhere 84 Cup Series. Career wins and only 1 championship. That's like, it's like, wow.
Yeah,
I think of Kyle Busch as not a driver who really plays good for this particular style of like playoffs in general. Chase, this playoff version, whatever you want to call it, I don't think he's ever really played good. Yes, he got his only championship in 2015 under this style. If you look back to 2008, he had such a great year in 2008, but when everything reset, playoffs hit, it wasn't the same. Kyle Busch is a driver that if we were back in a point system, prior to the Chase ever existing, I think maybe he'd have a few more championships just because he does consistently win a lot for the year, but maybe not necessarily during the time where you're supposed to.
Even if you didn't, no matter what I'm going to preface this, I know they'd race different because I know everyone in the chat will grill me on that. But if you look back at his career, 2008, with how much he fell off in the last 10 weeks of the year, he wouldn't have even been a contender. And I mean, a lot of that stuff was engine issues. A lot of that stuff was, over driving it and stuff. But if it was a full season point standings, I think he'd probably have 2 championships at this point. If it's the 10 race Chase one, maybe 1 or 2, but it's so at this point, there's no way to say he'd have 3 or 4. I don't think he would at this point. When it comes to wins through his career, though, I see him probably racing. I think he's 33 right now.
Yeah, 33.
Most drivers now are retiring around 42 to 45. So let's say he has 12 more years left in him. I don't think he surpasses Jeff Gordon. I think it's more realistic he falls in the same range that Darrell Waltrip, Allison, Johnson, Yarbrough, and Earnhardt are in, which I think is about right for how talented he is. I know a lot of people are like, he's going to average, he just has to average 4 wins a year. He can do that. It's yes, I know, but everyone thought Gordon was going to hit where Pearson was, and then he had a dip. And the thing is, Kyle Busch early in his career struggled, and that's something a lot of these people or a lot of these tier drivers didn't have. But I still think that towards the end of a driver's career, they always dip a little bit. I mean, you look at Jimmie Johnson; he's dipped a lot. Gordon's last year was, he retired at the right time. So I don't see him constantly putting up what he's doing right now in the prime of his career when he's at his absolute best. Against, and admittedly, this last year or two, a lesser field when it comes to equipment. I mean, you look at Chevy; they're falling off, and the amount of drivers retiring and stuff. So I see somebody else honestly coming around and being the hot new thing in the next 5 or 6 years. Maybe maybe it's someone we're not even looking at yet. Maybe it's somebody who
Paul Menard's going to start winning 6 races a year. Well, you heard it here first.
Maybe it's someone. Maybe it's someone who's not even on the national scale. Is what I'm saying. Somebody might just come up out of nowhere, like Jeff Gordon did, and just take over. You don't know. And that's why I don't want to be like, he's going to hit 90 wins, no problem, or he's going to win, he's going to surpass Pearson. I can't do that. I think he ends up with 82 to 85 wins. He's right in that range.
I still think that I think Kyle Larson is one that still has potential for a lot of great years coming up. I mean, if you talk about a guy who really just came up out of nowhere, it was literally only a few years back we saw him getting his engine ripped out of his car at Daytona in a nationwide series race, and then all of a sudden 2016 finally gets his first win. 2017 breakout year, got like four wins that season. Granted, last year it didn't win. He come awful close in quite a few. This year, it's also showing some potential. He's got a lot more time this year and plenty more years to come. Kyle Larson definitely will.
I'm just not. I don't know. Like, I'm just not entirely sure about him anymore because, like, you've heard the rumblings, like, oh, like, you know, he likes the World of Outlaws more. I mean, I could totally see Kyle Larson just like saying, screw NASCAR. I'm going to go run full time over there. And then also, I used to think it was the equipment that was holding him back. But then Kurt Busch came along and he's starting to, he's putting up a spectacular season. So, I mean, I'm not really sure about Larson right now, though.
That's the thing. Before the season, I think we were talking about, like, how is Kurt Busch coming over? How is that experience going to help Larson? And how is this going to help his career go further? This might be, at least in fan perception, the absolute worst thing that could happen for Larson, to get off to a slow start and for Kurt Busch to take a team that hasn't been relevant since really 2010 when it comes to running for wins on a regular basis, and take that team and all of a sudden he's running right up there with his brother, who is the master at this point of Bristol, and he's running right up there with him at the end of that race. Like, this, perception-wise, this is the absolute worst thing that could happen to Kyle Larson.
And also, perception-wise, Kurt Busch is now the number one driver over there. I know some are going to disagree with me on that and stuff, but to me, he's number one.
He literally is number one.
Yeah, he literally is number one. Exactly.
We had Kurt Busch came over and we all hoped, this is going to be great because he'll run okay, but he's mainly going to help Kyle Larson and that team's performance will go up the same way. You know, we kind of saw Kenseth and now Newman have helped Roush a little bit, you know, but then, yeah, you're right. Kurt Busch has just basically left him in the dust. And the sad thing is, you know, Larson's, he's had some good moments like Atlanta. He ran well, didn't get a great finish, but he ran well. Some of the issues has been pit crew with penalties. I think that happened a lot at Bristol, but it's also been a lot of Larson issues. He puts himself in the wall a lot. Yep. This last week, he wrecked himself in Byron. It's like, and he's supposed to be really good at Bristol.
So outside of NASCAR, he's not doing himself any favors either. Remember the Chili Bowl Nationals? Had the race won, and he choked it on the final lap. You know, that's that's Larson's Daytona 500 right there. I mean, and to make it 10 times worse, he lost to Christopher Bell, who's basically, you know, the same driver. I mean, they're both similar drivers and stuff. I feel like something that would make it 10 times worse is if, you know, let's say, you know, Kurt Busch does retire, which I think he is going to retire after this season. Let's say he does. I could totally see Christopher Bell jumping in that one car. I could see that. And now fans are like, they already compare the two as is, but if he starts to outrun Larson early on, then Larson's just gonna he's not gonna get his much fanfare there in that situation.
I want to ask the chat here. This might be just interesting. We can keep talking, but chat, if you were starting a race team today and you had one car that you were running in the Cup Series, which driver would you put in it? Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell? I'd be curious to see what the chat says.
Well, I used to think Kyle Larson and stuff, but I mean Christopher Bell. I mean, I don't know. His ceiling seems to be higher than Larson's these days. So I'm going with Bell on that one.
Yeah, I still don't know. Like, Bell's younger, but only by like 1 or 2 years. Bell's like 23, I believe. He's pretty old for a guy who hasn't in the Cup Series yet.
I think it's the fact that he has no facial hair that really just makes him.
Yeah, when I was at the race a couple weeks ago, my dad actually didn't know what Christopher Bell looked like. When he saw him, he's like, he looks like he's 14.
Yeah.
So I do want to. I know he's not living up to expectations as much, but I'll run a little devil's advocate here for Kyle Larson. I'm looking at his career numbers right here. He hasn't had a season where he's had less than 10 top 10s. The first 2 years of his career were rough. 0 wins in either of them. 8 top 5s one year, 2 the next, and 17 top 10s. In his rookie season, 10 the next. But then you look at his numbers, 2016 through 2018. 1 win, 10 top 5s, 15 top 10s in a year that was arguably pretty good to do that with Ganassi equipment. Finished 9th in the standings. 2017, full wins, 15 top fives, 20 top tens. I don't know about you guys, but having been a Dale Jr. fan my whole life, that is a number that I would love my driver to put up each year.
Well, yeah,
I'm in the standings, but then last year was a down year. 0 wins, yes, but 12 top fives and 19 top tens and finished 9th in the standings. Again, he's off to a bad start this year, but I will ask, are we kind of overdoing it a little bit? Because I mean, in 2017, he led over 1,000 laps.
I was just about to say, like, I mean, by comparison to his teammate Kurt Busch, it looks pretty bad. But for the most part, Larson is still putting up fairly consistent numbers that, as a Bubba fan, I wish Bubba could, put up those numbers and stuff. Hopefully someday he does. But, I mean, you do bring up a good point with that. And also, his first 2 years in the Cup Series, you can make the argument that, in all honesty, maybe Larson was rushed in a sense, and he still put up those. Yeah, he still put up those amazing numbers and stuff for his first 2 years.
Here's what I'll ask: you think of Kyle Larson 2014 in his rookie year. The first thing you don't think of is he missed the chase. No, the first thing you think of is that when he got passed 3 wide for the lead at Chicagoland. Like, and the fact that had it not been for Dale Jr. getting into him and crashing him on pit road at Michigan and getting into him on track, he's in the chase and possibly a contender in his rookie season. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I think that Larson really needs to step it up, and I think that seeing how Kurt Busch is doing right now, it shows that there is plenty of room to improve. And maybe he was overhyped. I personally don't think he's overrated, seeing how he's put up 5 wins and contended in a lot of years. But I do think the media has overhyped him, and there is a difference there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of disrespect too. I've been seeing a lot of NASCAR bust Kyle Larson requests. That is absolutely wrong. That's unfair. That is disrespectful. Just stop it right now.
Kyle Larson.
Rajah, what do you think?
Kyle Larson has probably at least 15 years in him, probably. So
yeah. Rajah, what do you think about the whole thing?
So first off, back in 2014. And when the chase started, not only Larson but also Jamie McMurray through the first 5 races of the chase, they were running top 10 and top 5. You look at Kansas, you look at Chicago, you look at even Martinsville. McMurray got the pole in Martinsville. They were bringing good equipment to the chase that year, and so I think specifically coming back to now, I think it's more so some stuff on Larson's end in terms of mistakes. You talked about him when he wrecked with Byron at Bristol last week. You talk about him with the speeding penalty at Atlanta. I think it's a little he has nobody can doubt his ability. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, most talented drivers in the Cup Series, along with Kyle Busch and Logano. You can make that argument.
I saw a funny tweet as well earlier in the week. It said, "Move Larson to the 88. I want to see him in better equipment." Okay, that was a good joke. But
88 ain't been that good in quite a while, so
yeah. Come on now. But for the most part, Larson still has he has a very long way to go. But the only question is NASCAR gonna drive him away? Because Larson is not a fan of all these rules changes and package changes. I mean, like I said before, don't be surprised to see Larson out of NASCAR by in 5 years or something, just to run World of Outlaws.
I'll bring this up for you guys. And I'm going to ask a question and then make a little bit of a comparison before. But so I want to ask, is it partly because he has choked a lot of times? There's no way around that. He had, a championship level season derailed in 17. Is it in his head? Because I kind of compare Kyle Larson at this point to an old Vikings quarterback, Dante Culpepper. For people who don't remember, Culpepper was an amazing talent, and he had a rocket ship of an arm.
Him and Moss, man. Oh my God.
Yes. But he could bomb it 60 yards, no problem. Culpepper put up these awesome numbers, numbers that are on the same level of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning on a yearly basis. And then he tore ACL, MCL, all that. Just basically took a shotgun to his knee, basically. And he still had all that talent. He had that. He couldn't run away from people as much. He still had that arm, but he was never the same again. Never the same after that definitive moment of, having this, an injury like that is very demoralizing and takes a lot away from your psyche with it. But he was never the same again. He had all that talent, but could never put up what he put up in 2002 and 3. So is Kyle Larson possibly the Dante Culpepper of NASCAR here? Or if he's falling off more?
Mm-hmm. I think I could definitely agree with the psyche thing in terms of getting in his own head. You can't really say much in terms of what people are thinking. But I'll use the example of Michael Annett. Dale Jr. talked about it. I think it was either on NASCAR America or something recently. He was talking about how he paired him with Travis Mack and how Michael Annett kind of was so used to kind of just salvaging races and running with H. Scott Motorsports back for 2015 and 16, kind of just salvaging and running in the back instead of just getting up on the wheel. And you saw how much it's turned around starting this year. They have the best average finish, I think outside of Bell and Reddick, of the 6th or 7th place finish in the Xfinity Series. So I think I agree with you with the psyche type deal, I guess, with Larson, just because his talent is there. Maybe if he has a good run coming up this weekend in Richmond, it sets him on a good streak in terms of he's got momentum, he's got a little pep in his step, and so he's not, I guess, second guessing moves he's making on track.
Yeah, the psyche thing is it's a real thing, speaking from experience, just running track and stuff. If you get inside your own head and stuff, then you're pretty much screwed for the whole race and stuff. But for Larson, though, I have to ask this, Jarrett. What happened to him in NASCAR for him to do that and stuff? Like what event specifically, happened for him to sort of get in his own head?
I mean, I think you could look at, a few of them. I think the big one, though, is you look at 2017, how good he was. 4 wins, rolling into the chase. He was a legit contender. I mean, you're looking at how good he is at Homestead if he doesn't hit the wall. And I don't even mean that in a joking way. I mean, if he doesn't hit the wall, he is one of the top 2 or 3 guys at Homestead. People are already saying, once Larson makes it to Homestead, it's game on kind of thing. At the time, we weren't even second guessing that he wouldn't make it.
But
he gets taken out, not in the round of 8, in the round of 12. That's just unbelievable.
But the thing is that wasn't his fault, though. That was more of a whole. That was Ganassi's fault and stuff, though. If it was of his own doing, then I'd agree with you on that.
But it doesn't have to be of his own doing. If it happened, if it completely demoralizes you to that point, it doesn't matter. It almost makes it worse that it was completely out of your control, is what I'm thinking of it. So if it is a mental thing, I think that's where the seed at least was planted.
Yeah, I guess I agree.
I don't
with that.
think that maybe,
or maybe it's a bunch of little small events that are getting to him. I mean, last year he had what, how many second place finishes did he have last year? I mean, a lot. I mean, that can get to you. And then, even before that, 2014, 2015, there were some races where I thought, oh, it's going to happen. He's going to get first career win, and it doesn't go his way. So
maybe it's just that he didn't live up to your prediction last year, and he felt ashamed of it. Maybe that's it.
Maybe I picked him to win the championship. Remember, guys, that was so laughable looking back now. I was like, remember the running meme. This is Kyle Larson's week. He's gonna win the champion. He's gonna go on his championship run this week, and that never came. Ugh.
That's why Kyle Larson will come on the podcast. He can't bear to face you. He knows he's disappointed you so heavily. He wouldn't be able to do it. He couldn't handle it.
Oh. No, Larson, you did okay, boy. Come on the show. Come on the show.
Yes. Sorry, I was just looking at something that Keplinger told me to look at Twitter, and it says it's a picture of Patrick Star from SpongeBob. Well, to talk about on the podcast, it's a list he's holding, blah, 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 blah. All 4 weekly podcast racing drivers finished in the top 4 of NYOS points. So there's a shout.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did. That's right.
Yeah.
So what's next? Are we moved on to Richmond picks?
One little thing before that you talked about, Eric, was Bubba expressing his frustrations.
Oh, yes.
I'll let you guys go on this one. You guys have more opinions on it than I.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, bet. So I spent some time with RPM last year in terms of, I just hung out around their pit box. And so in terms of the stuff they have compared to the other teams, they don't have that much. Well, I won't say they don't have
You
that
don't
much.
say.
Like in terms of like the effort is there in terms of they have the right people. They just don't have, I guess, the funds, I guess, to really back that up. And you look at how much changed when Smithfield and Almirola left in 2017, and they were given like millions and millions of dollars, I think, over what, a 5-year season, and they said that they left because they weren't producing with Almirola. And you look at how much, they were searching for sponsors last year. And they found Worldwide Technology, they found Click and Close. But I think if they can find, I guess, a group of good like sponsors that can help them, I guess, get a good string of top 20s and then top 17s and then sneak in a top 13 or a top 10 at Dega and keep working at the short tracks, they'll come back eventually. They just have to get everything lined up, and hopefully a little luck will play into it.
I would agree with you 100%, but one guy is standing in that team's way, Richard Petty himself. He still does handshake deals. That team they haven't really been the same since he retired. I mean, let's be honest here. Obviously you had a few, some decent years here and there and stuff. And I'll also mention this. Adam Petty was supposed to be that team's future. Kyle Petty was going to retire and just focus on helping him out and stuff. But he unfortunately died, and that sort of changed the whole direction of that team, where they were going. And they were about to shut down in like 2008 before Ray Abraham pretty much sold the rest of his equipment because he had grown tired of running a team. And then, you had Smithfield on board for a long time, Eric Almirola. And I mean, I would always feel for him because, he's a way better driver than his results were showing. But then what put the nail in the coffin here was when Richard Petty badmouthed Smithfield for leaving. Right. He badmouthed them. And that pretty much just sealed your fate and stuff, because I guarantee you other sponsors were like, oh, I don't know. I mean, if we ever leave Petty, watch out and stuff. And just the fact that in 2019, he still does handshake deals, not only with sponsors, but with drivers as well. It's mind blowing to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I know I get on Bubba a lot, more so in a joking way, because let's be honest here. It's the team he's running on. To be honest with you, I mean, it's a bit of a combination of both factors here, but for the most part, that team is horrible. And for those to even directly compare him and Eric Almirola's time at Richard Petty Motorsports is unfair, and I just think that's wrong.
Not to mention the fact that I'm not sure who RPM had an alliance with Ford, if they were with Stuart Haas.
They had with Robert Yates, when they were with Ford. And that's another factor. They switched to Chevy at the worst possible time, man. Because if you look back at Bubba filling in for Eric Almirola, I think his average finish was like, what, Jared? 15. Like 17th, 15th, somewhere around there?
I think he ran about 14th, 15th.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He didn't get a top 10, but I mean, he was still running up there, similar to where Eric Almirola was running. And unfortunately, they switched to Chevy, and they were in alliance with Richard Childress, which I was like, I mean, they'll run decent, but I don't think they'll be terrible. And then you had last year happen. So I don't know. I feel like that team's days are numbered. And to make it 10 times worse, Bubba was out there saying like, oh, how it's so hard and stuff to find sponsorship and stuff, which I guess to end on this note, how the hell does Bubba how is he having trouble finding sponsorship? Yeah. I mean, he's the only black dude there and stuff. You figured he would have no problem finding sponsors, being 17.8. Yeah, 17-point average finish there. Yeah, so Bubba's not. So again, I mean, that's just proof to me that Bubba is not terrible. It's mostly his equipment, but I will say Bubba does need to stop wrecking cars. And for the most part this season, he's done that.
I mean, I hate to keep bringing her up, but I mean, if Danica Patrick gets sponsorship for all that time, why can't Bubba?
Well, and if you compare Bubba's average finish to 17.8 in those, granted 4 races, that's small. Races. It's a small sample sizing there. But Eric Almirola 18.8 that year. So around the same area. And then you see Almirola last year gets a 12.8 average, and Bubba gets a we'd rather not talk about it kind of average, basically.
No, I agree with everything y'all pretty much been saying. I think the big nail in the coffin was at the end of 2017 when everything hit them all at once. Smithfield left. They switched to Chevy, which got off to a slow start, didn't have the support of the other manufacturers, and they brought in a rookie driver with minimal Cup experience. Now, I don't think Bubba's terrible, but he's not a championship driver. He's a mid-pack driver these days. You could put him in that 18 car, and he'd run 12.
He's a B+ potential. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he's a B. I don't really think Bubba Wallace, even if you put him in the best equipment, is necessarily ever going to be a championship contender, but he's very good. He can be very good. I just think all that happening at once is really what cost them. And I think, Richard Petty, I think right now Bubba Wallace, his race, his personality, everything like that, I think is the number one reason they have any sponsorship on their car, because I think Richard Petty scared a lot of people away, and their performance sure as hell is scaring a lot of people away. So they've pieced together. They have mostly a full season's worth of sponsorship. So they're making do. And as long as they can keep doing that, I'm sure they'll stay in business. But yeah, what you said, Rajah, a minute ago, how they clearly don't have what other teams have. That's what we've heard when we had Dillon Smith on a couple weeks back. He said the same thing. They just are working with much less than the other teams. They are truly like, they're not quite to where like Rick Ware Racing is, or some of the really small single car teams that are practically starting park. They're not quite to there yet, but they're as close to that as you can possibly be without being that. Like we used to kind of compare them to Ganassi or Roush for a few years there. They're not there anymore. They have fallen below those teams, which, given how far Roush has fallen and how Larson's doing this year, that's very unfortunate.
That's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they turn things around. I think they'll make it through this year, but they might not come back for 2020. I wouldn't guarantee it.
Wow. When Bubba was talking about, I've had sleepless nights, I was like, I just feel for the guy, man. He's a good dude, and I wish nothing but the best for him, but he doesn't have a choice. That's the only team that's willing to pay his bills, basically.
Yeah,
where's it gonna go?
It was sad hearing that statement too. Him talking about how he acted like there was pretty much only negatives from his time with Petty, and I just felt bad for him because it's like, here's a guy who's worked all his life to get into the Cup Series. He's in the Cup Series, and he's talking about how it's mostly negative. It's almost all negative from the sound of it, and this should be fun for him right now. He's getting his feet wet. He's getting great experience. He's on the big stage, what everyone always dreams of if you're a race car driver. He should be having fun, and it's a shame.
It goes from Joe Gibbs to RPM. I feel for him, man.
With a little Roush in between.
Yeah, and a little Roush in between. Yeah.
I'm really again, like I brought it up last time we talked about Bubba and RPM. Does RPM go the way that the Wood brothers did for a few years and just run like a 20 race schedule, get the ones that they have the best chances of good finishes at, and try and get money over time to then come back later full time?
I down to that. I don't know.
I'm gonna say no because Richard Petty, he hasn't made the brightest decisions. I could see him. I couldn't see him doing that, honestly. Just with his track record of bad decisions he's made with that team, I don't know. I couldn't see him doing that.
While we are on the subject of drivers who, like Bubba's lack of success, I do want to say something we missed entirely while talking about Bristol. I want to give some attaboys to some people I noticed who were surprisingly up front. I saw Chris Buescher, Matt DiBenedetto, and even the Dillon brothers all hanging up close to the top 10 throughout the rest of the day. Buescher didn't get quite the finish that he really deserved out of it, but he was up in the top 10, really close to the top 5 a lot of the day.
When I asked on Twitter who's the most underrated driver, Chris Buescher was probably the most mentioned and stuff. He had a few Eric Joneses here and Matt DiBenedettos, but Chris Buescher really hasn't really gotten the best shake since being in the Cup Series. Won a championship in Xfinity with Roush in 2015. Then he's demoted to Front Row Motorsports, unfortunately. And he gets that win, but come on, it was because of rain. Yeah, it's pretty much by rain and stuff. So I feel like some of these bigger teams, like a Hendrick, should really look into Chris Buescher. Maybe I don't know who he would replace over there, but I don't know. Looking at that 88 there, maybe.
Well, speaking of,
likewise to counter that argument, I'm thinking that JTG Dodger. I've been noticing like they've been putting in more and more infrastructure to that team. That's a team to watch for the next few years.
Yeah,
especially with Ryan Preece and stuff. Not doing too good right now, but he's a rookie and stuff. Give him time.
I'm sure that one of the other drivers you're talking about in there, Ty Dillon, I'm sure Kamikaze would be really happy to see that he won his first stage of his career this week.
Yeah. I'll just put it like this. I didn't see Casey Mears win any stages there. So, therefore, Ty Dillon's obviously the better driver. So, there you go.
Ty Dillon, more stage wins than Casey Mears. You heard it here.
When Ty Dillon over took the seat of Casey Mears over at Germain at first, like for 2017 and like half of last year, I was pretty mad about that because Casey Mears kind of helped, especially with the RCR line starting in I think it was 2015. They started running really good. They ran like top 15 at Vegas and like Richmond, I believe, in 2015, and had some good runs in 2016. Then they had the chemistry going, and then Ty Dillon came up because he was done with Xfinity. But he's kind of grown on me in terms of like it doesn't seem like he's the guy that just shows up, on Friday and doesn't spend time with the team during the week. Especially, I don't know if y'all watched this. He did like a little vlog series last year.
No, he has a YouTube channel. Yeah, I'm subscribed to him.
He and showed like kind of what he does every week in terms of prepping and how much time he puts in and how he balances it with family and stuff. And I thought it was really cool because it kind of showed that he's about it, and he drove the wheels off of him to get that stage win this week. And not only this week, but for the entire year, he's helped. Him and Germain have run like top 15 a lot of tracks, and so they've been running good this year.
I'll say this too. I'll add this part, and this may get a little controversial. Daniel Hemrick is not running good at all right now. So is it possible that we could see Ty Dillon in that ride maybe in a couple years, possibly a possible promotion here?
It depends on if Germain and Ty Dillon continue to improve. If they improve and are running where Austin Dillon is, I don't see Richard Childress breaking that up because I think he'd want his grandson doing better and wouldn't want to shake up that situation. If Hemrick, after a few years is running where he is now or worse, he's out. And if Ty Dillon isn't doing any better, I see Childress then putting him in.
Now, I'm not saying after this year, obviously. I'm saying like maybe 2 or 3 years, something like that.
Oh, yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for coming on.
That's fine. Rajah, if you need to go ahead and head out, if you want to go ahead, tell people where we can find you,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just check me out on, I guess, Instagram, Twitter, at Rajah Caruth. I'd make some YouTube videos too. I'm on iRacing a lot. I'll be at Richmond this weekend if anybody will be there in the chat or on this call. So thank y'all for having me on. It was a blast.
Yeah, no problem. Future Cup Series driver right there.
Hopefully
in the future. Yeah.
Great having you on, man.
Thank you.
Later.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me.
Thank you for being on. Really quick, guys, are we gonna just go right into Richmond picks then?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do
We
it.
put it off long enough.
Yeah. So who's gonna start?
I'll go ahead and start since I'm hosting it. Who's gonna suck at Richmond this weekend? Zod just sounds like the pick. Just because he hasn't really been doing much at all this year. Kevin Harvick, he's my pick for who's gonna suck this weekend.
Disrespectful. He's third in the points. He's done a lot. He's been doing a lot this year, just very quietly though. That's
Well,
I like that.
I'll put it to how I saw it at Bristol last week too. Not that good.
Yeah, good point. So for my who's gonna suck pick for Richmond, I'm gonna say I'll probably put it in William Byron. I know he's had a few good weeks here and there and stuff. He's qualified well, but when it comes to race time, he's just not as consistent as I thought he would be. So and also Hendrick, I don't know, like they seem to have at least one car always struggling. So unfortunately, I'm going to put William Byron in that category.
I'll kind of go similar with your Harvick route there, Danny B, but I'm not going to quite go all the way with Harvick because even though he struggled at Bristol, he actually had a good car in that race. It was the beginning stuff that really screwed him over. But I'm instead going to go with another former member of the Big Three. I'll go with Martin Truex Jr. because did you guys know he's never won on a short track?
Wow.
Yes, according to Rick Allen, Dale Sr. died, and he's never won on a short track.
Yeah. We're knocking all of the memes out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I Martin Truex Jr., oddly enough, the last 2 or 3 weeks specifically, I know he runs fine at Richmond. He's not. I'm not saying he's going to run like 20th, but I'm thinking 10th, 15th for Truex. The last couple weeks, he's been the 4th best Gibbs car. He was the worst of them at Texas. He was the worst of them, I think, at Bristol. Jones had a good car until his pit crew just choked 3 times in a row. So I don't know. I'm going to say Truex. I think he's going to run 12th or finish 12th.
So you remember a few weeks ago when I did all my picks and I was based on 9? Well, I'm doing all my picks based on 9 again. And I'm going to start out with Truex because I was looking at the trends, and I was looking, and he has, of course, 0 wins. No shocking there. Yeah, but 3 top 5s and 9 top 10s in 26 starts, and an average finish of 19.2 at Richmond. Granted, he got a top 10 there last year and led a lot of laps, but at the same time, he's been a step off. Like I just overall, it looked like he's been a step off, and I think that continues this weekend at Richmond. So I got Truex second.
All right.
And on the dark horses.
Moving on to underdogs, and my underdog pick actually finished 6th at Bristol last weekend. I'm going to go with Paul Menard. Going to get another decent run. He's been, I don't know, he's just kind of just been there, just showing some signs of success this season. And after seeing what he could do at Bristol, he kind of just hung around, he probably hung around about like 12 to 15, but worked out to get a almost top 5 finish at Bristol. So yeah, I could see another good run for Paul Menard this weekend.
I'm going to say Ryan Newman. I had Ryan Newman in my fantasy last week, did fairly well. Man, just that 6 team, I feel really happy for those guys. I mean, obviously last year you had the whole driver shakeup, and Kenseth proved that it was maybe more so the driver than it was the equipment. And getting Newman, getting some veteran presence on that team was the right move. And currently right now, if I pull up the points, he is 15th right now. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Currently has the final playoff spot right now. Now, it's still fairly early here, but on these short tracks, Newman seems to have it. I'll even go as far as saying I could maybe see him in the top 5 this weekend, possibly running up there. Not necessarily finishing up there, though. Maybe, at least getting a top 10 finish, but I could see him running inside the top 5 this weekend. So Ryan Newman, underdog pick.
That's a good one. I almost went with Ryan Newman because I also think he might run in the top 10. He's been pretty good lately, last couple of weeks. But I'm just going to go with the guy who's got the hot hand. At some point, maybe he's not even going to be considered an underdog anymore, but I think Kurt Busch, dude's on a tear. I mean, what's next? He's finished 2nd this last week, so logically, next step forward, he's going to win a race. Don't think he's going to win this weekend at Richmond, but yeah, at a track where aerodynamics don't come into play as much, so he's not hindered by the Chevy struggles that maybe has hurt them at some of the bigger tracks. I think drivers in control, Kurt Busch, looking for him for another top 5.
For me, dark horse, well, I lied. I looked at one of my picks. Not all of them will be doing with 9, but this one will. It's the driver of car number 9, Chase Elliott. I think Chase Elliott's going to do pretty good this weekend. While he hasn't had a win, I could totally see him going for a win, seeing how the 2 top 5s he's had in his career both came last year, including a 2nd place finish. So I'd say watch out for Elliott. He could. I know I said that if Busch had a problem, Chevy wouldn't win, but Elliott might win too. So don't overlook him.
All right.
Moving on to who do we think is going to win, and kind of going off of what Jarrett just said, my pick has been kind of hard for me to really finalize, but I think I finally got it figured out. There's been actually 4 drivers that I've actually been thinking of. Number 9, Chase Elliott. He has been one I've been considering. He was my pick to win Bristol last week, and he started on the pole, led quite a bit, but there was an on-track moment that kind of just made it never the same for him. He got actually 2nd in this race a year ago. Granted, it was a little bit of a strategy helped him get it. He wasn't really running up there. But I do believe, I think he ran fairly decent here in the fall race last year. So yeah, I could see him having a good chance, but he's not who I'm going to pick. Another driver who I was considering, not going to go with. It's actually one you guys kind of wrote out, and that was Martin Truex Jr., but I'm thinking logically, I don't see it happening. He has had good runs here, but not who I'm going with. And the other guy, I really think I'm going to regret not going with him. I would say Kyle Busch would win here and get 2 in a row, but I'm actually going to go with his teammate who has 2 wins this season, Denny Hamlin from Virginia. Denny Hamlin is my pick to win this weekend.
For my pick, Kevin Harvick, he's due for a win. You guys are disrespecting him. Everyone seems to be. I mean, just looking at his stats. Well, I'm talking to the chat. I'm talking to the chat as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking to the chat as well. Yeah, I'm talking to, and also
for the man.
Yeah, and also to Danny, because through the first eight races of 2019, 0 wins, unfortunately, but 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s, a pole, and an average finish of of 9th place. So, I mean, he's not having a horrible season. He's just not winning as much as he was last year and stuff. So, to me, this season has been sort of similar to Jeff Gordon 2002. Coming off his championship, a lot of people thought, oh, that was an off year. I think Jeff Gordon finished like, what, 3rd in points? Something like that. Still had three wins that season. Harvick is currently 5th in points. So he's not having a terrible year. I'm sure this is the season a lot of teams would love to have. So Kevin Harvick, he's due for a win, and he's gonna get it this weekend at Richmond.
Jeff Gordon finished 4th that year.
4th, yeah, okay. That was a bad year, though. That was a bad year. Yeah.
Contending for the championship in 4th place finishing points. So terrible.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Yeah, Kevin Harvick, it's not a bad year, but, given how dominant he was the first half last year, I tweeted this, and I still think it's funny. My favorite thing of this season has been the fact that Kevin Harvick is just, pretty good so far. That's just super fun for me. I don't know why. My pick for this weekend, I go back and forth. Some weeks I really enjoy myself. I go out on a limb, make a silly prediction. Other weeks I just stick to what makes the most really can't decide what mood I'm in tonight, but I think I'm going to go with the logical side, and all signs point to Kyle Busch winning this race. He just won a short track race at Bristol. He won both races at Richmond last year. He's the hottest driver in the sport. Joe Gibbs Racing's, I mean, collectively Penske's the best team in NASCAR, but Kyle Busch is the best individual performer so far early on in this season. I think he's going to be mad that late model race got rained out, so he can't go leech and sweep the weekend. So he's just going to take it out on the field on Saturday night and win the Cup race. So yeah, I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. I hope somebody more exciting wins, but I don't know.
See, once again, I'm agreeing with you on this, and I'll just add to it. So he's got 6 wins here. Yeah. 17 top 5s and 20 top 10s. And here's the big one. He is so dominant in the spring race, especially. Last year, the last Richmond race was the first time he won at Richmond when it wasn't in the spring. He won 4 straight years in the spring at one point.
Wow.
Like, when I say this, I'm usually wrong. So maybe, hopefully, for our sanity's sake and our talking points next week's sake, I'm wrong. But I can't go against Kyle Busch. He goes up from 10th to 9th on the all-time win list and ties Rusty Wallace this week.
Ooh, or Walrus. You mean Walrus?
No, I meant Wallace.
like I said, I think I'm going to regret not going with Kyle Busch, but I don't know. I'm just feeling like Denny Hamlin. He's ready. He's ready to get his 3rd win of the season and win at home.
Yeah, I like that Hamlin pick, though. I almost went with him, but Kyle Busch is in the same equipment. I can't go against him.
All right.
Well, cool.
All right. Well, I think that'll just about wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Really quick, got to make sure you're on watch my channel next week, because Rusty Walrus will be on there. And also, you'll be able to see our interview with Dave Despain, as he liked to say back in the day. So make sure you watch. It's a really, really fun interview.
The interview is 35 minutes long. That's going to cover pretty much the second half of next week's podcast. And it's kind of fitting because next week is a bye week, so won't have as much to talk about and stuff, but definitely tune in. I watched him for years on Speed Channel's Wind Tunnel and stuff, and it was just an honor to interview him and stuff. So pretty cool.
It's well worth the watch, guys. Make sure to tune in my channel next week. And then remember, Rusty Walrus will be on there. We need to get him to 1,000 subs. So let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's get Rusty Walrus to 1,000. Let's get me and Jarrett to 5,000. And
me to 10,000 as well, hopefully, Lord willing.
Let's get Eric to 100,000. So. Just thank you everyone for watching. We always appreciate the support week in, week out here on the NASCAR Weekly Podcast. Looking forward to next week's show with Rusty, and I really think y'all are going to really enjoy the interview with Dave Despain. It featured myself, Jarrett, and Darian. We all got to be a part of that. Unfortunately, Eric couldn't make it with us, but I guess me and Eric traded. I couldn't be a part of the Alan Bestwick interview, so either way, it's what's that, Eric?
Oh, I was just saying, I'm excited to hear it, though. I think from what you guys have hyped it up, I am excited to give it a.
Yeah, Eric couldn't join us. He had school.
Yeah, ain't that just the way?
Yeah.
Darn responsibility stuff.
Yeah, damn it.
I wish I could make YouTube my full-time commitment, but not quite there yet, boys. So that's your incentive to get to 100,000, get me to 100,000 subscribers. Then I won't have interviews anymore. I can focus on you guys.
There you go. And absolutely. Hey, we all got responsibilities. I got to go to work tomorrow, so we'll go ahead and call it a show, I guess. Definitely.
Cue the 4-minute outro.
No,
I love it.
No, I ain't doing that.
Oh, come on.
We got
Come on.
watch. We got
Come
to think of our
on.
guys listening on SoundCloud for that one. So
Yeah.
No, we ain't doing it.
Let's all sing the outro together. No.
The what?
I said
Let's sing the outro. Let's sing the outro song.
Yeah,
Although I don't
sing the outro. How about
how about the intro for the outro?
yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
That works for me. Okay.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Bye bye.
Green flag, I'll roll. He's flipping me